Hi, everybody. Welcome to another live session. We are one day before Thanksgiving in the US, so we may not have as large of an audience today, but that's okay. We were just looking forward to anybody who, again, if you're in the US and you have the day off today, this is going to be a great opportunity to just kind of chill out and spend some time with us and hopefully get some good learnings. And we're really going to be pushing and continue to push over the next few weeks on how you can really take advantage of the holidays and really make this time super useful so that you can get the most out of some downtime. I know it's not the most fun thing in the world to be doing interview prep and doing all that practice, but again, when you have the downtime, it's a really nice option to just get some of that prep and practice in, because we can get really busy with our day jobs and not really be able to find the time. And of course, as you're coming into this holiday season, it's incredibly important that you just take the time to set a plan and set a schedule. And that's going to be part of the coaching that we introduce in our new interview course that's coming out in mid-January, is just how do you set the plan? Because if we don't set the plan to do interview prep and practice, it's really not going to happen, right? And so that could just be, scheduling from 8 to 9 p.m. one night to start writing out your behavioral answers. But the criticality of setting that plan, it's just going to be so important as we come into the holidays. So it's just something I want you to continually be thinking about. As people come on, I rarely prompt to say, hey, say hello, let me know that we're live, let me know that my mic is not on mute, which it does not appear to be, that you can hear and see us. And obviously we love the hellos. As you're coming on, if you like what we're doing overall, make sure to hit that like button. And obviously if you've never subscribed, we're getting really, really close to a super big milestone for us, which is we're under 100 subs away from hitting 20,000. And that's just, it's amazing. And I know we see these channels with these crazy subscriber counts, but I've actually been producing content and releasing content on YouTube for, it's been over 3 years now. And so we appreciate every single subscriber, every single person who comes into this platform. We're incredibly grateful. And that's a good pivot. I think everybody knows this is a positive platform. So as you come on, as you're putting in comments, as you're chiming in today, positivity is really important. We know that if you are positive, it's going to really, really show up well in your interviews. It's going to show up in the mindset as you prep and you get into this. So just a couple of really quick agenda items. And then I know there were some comments that came in a couple hours ago, and we'll always take it in order. And typically we get a little bit behind, but I do think it'll be a smaller audience today just with the holidays in the US. Lastly, I do have a fun turkey hat next to me today. So if anybody wants to see that turkey hat come on, please make sure to throw that in the comments. We'll see if that interests people. So we did pull down the interview course last week. Again, we're prepping and we're going to be releasing a course in mid-January. It's going to be very robust. And have lots of great content, some very, very fresh new content that you won't be able to find in any of our videos. So we'll keep kind of prompting to that and just be setting the tone and stage, because we think that course is going to be one of the best interview courses out there. All right, no further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. I'm here to answer all questions, and let's just have a fun Q&A today. Again, we're anticipating a pretty slow day because of the holidays in the US, so it could be a shorter session today, and that's fine. Just last thing, I know a lot of agenda items today. We are going to produce lives for the next 3 weeks, and then we'll shut down the 2 last weeks of the year. So the last week that we produce, that will be our 50th live. So really, really exciting for us to hit that threshold and hit that number. Thank you so much for being here. If you like what we're doing, hit that like button. Okay, let's dive right in with Ty. Okay. This is an interview question, so we're going to dive and get my brain working right away. You organized a training, and a day before, half the people declined, and you had a long wait list, and it took lots of times to put together. How would you solve this problem? So I do need some instant clarification here, right? What I really want to try to understand about the event is this event where people are going to need to be physically present, or is this a virtual event? Because that will obviously change a lot of the setup here, because if it's a virtual event, I can probably fill those seats with my waitlist people. If it's a physical on-site event, I might change and pivot the way I attack it. Now, if they don't answer that question, we're definitely going virtual event, just because that will make it easier for us. I want to know the numbers. Are we talking about 20 attendees, 50 attendees, or 100 or more attendees? That will, again, also help me structure it. I try to understand how big the wait list is. Is the wait list actually going to fill all the people who stepped away? Is it going to fill half the people who stepped away, etc.? So those are some of the critical items. There's more questions to ask, but those are a few foundational questions that I'm just thinking about off the top of my head. Then the number one piece when I come into this framework is I really want to understand timeline and stakeholders. Who are those stakeholders that I can bring in that are really going to help me get to that wait list to see if they can attend this event? Again, whether that's physical or a virtual event. And then, of course, what are the risks? If I can't get anybody in and it's only a half full event, what is the risk? Am I going to maybe need to shut this down? What have I budgeted for this event, et cetera? And then as we get into the solution, again, I would go right to the assumptive that it's a virtual event and that I have some critical stakeholders who are invested in the process who are going to help me do those reach outs to the people on the wait list. Maybe we even incentivize people on the wait list with a discount. Maybe we can come back and offer a discount to those people who did sign up and stuck with it. Something that shows the good faith of what we're doing. And of course, you can dive down into the weeds from there. But that's the very, very high level of how I tackle that question. That's a fun question. There's a very similar common question that's asked to administrative business partners at Google. And that question is, it's a couple days before a major event and the venue's double booked. What do you do? So very similar types of questions. Salary expectation for level 7 strategy and ops in NYC, okay, versus LA. So, any of these L7 non-tech roles, I'm really trying to anchor, my anchor would be in the 500s. I don't think you'll get there, maybe even up to 600. Non-tech, I'm trying to go maybe 550 to 600 on an anchor. And you're really looking for an average of like 450K as your 4-year average, which means you'll definitely be into the 500s in year one. Now, I wouldn't change it too much based on LA. The thing for anybody in LA that you need to know is that that market's not really comped appropriately. So what do I mean by that? The vast majority of people who are working in tech in LA are on the west side of LA. The west side of LA is as expensive as the Bay or New York, or more expensive. And so LA is not going to pay quite as well. So I would think that your 4-year average would be like more lower fours. But again, I would still want you to anchor up around 550 at least. Set that anchor high. Remember, you're not going to lose the job because you do that, especially at a company like Google. How would you go about negotiating? And you can't. They're going to comp you based on where you're located. So that's not an option. 6 weeks since you were invited to a role and still have not been told the details. Each time you ask for an update, you're told that the final stages, you'll hear back by end of week. Okay, this doesn't happen and you're ghosted. You chase again, the cycle repeats, ghosted, and eventually told the same as above. Any advice on what to do next? You've lost the faith. Yeah, so I think at this point, Chris, when we get to the 6-week stage, what we really need to do is we really need to just kind of ask, okay, can you provide me a little bit more data? Is this common? Is the holdup that an interviewer hasn't provided feedback? I want to continue to stay positive, but at this point, I need to ask you as my recruiter to put yourself in my shoes. This is a dream opportunity for me, and to continue to get the same feedback is frustrating. So sometimes we just need to come with a still positive, but more honest approach, especially if they're at 6 weeks. What's happened is they're either not giving you straightforward information, or there literally might be an interviewer or two who has not provided feedback and they have not done their job of escalating it on them. They need to be escalated on. And again, we talked a lot about this actually last week, I think, which is if an interviewer didn't provide feedback for a week and I pinged and I messaged and I didn't hear back in a week, I would instantly escalate to their manager. And I did not care the repercussions. They were not doing their job. That's not my fault. And I'm going to do what's in the best interest of my candidate. I'm their advocate. So if they're not getting an interview feedback, I'm going to push really hard on that recruiter. Their job is to complete feedback in 48 to 72 hours. So if they're not doing that, essentially they're not doing their job. And I need to hold them accountable for that. So there's some accountability piece here, but you just need to ask for more clarity and you need to say, put yourself in my shoes. They forget and you need to remind them. I hope that helps. Continue to come back and check in with us. I'm sorry, this does happen. It sounds like you're not 100% being ghosted, just that they're giving you the same answer every single week. Okay. Google TSC, so that's a technical solutions consultant, final round RK in biz in 4 hours. Okay, based on project management, stakeholder management, client management, business communications, you're interviewing. Oh, you're interviewing for a business intelligence, a BI eng. Okay. So some quick guidance on what you can utilize in the next 4 hours. Yeah, I mean, for me, first things first, it's, well, where are we at here? What was your timeline? So 9:46. Okay, so I'm assuming your interview's around 2. At 1 p.m., now again, I don't know if this is Pacific or Eastern or Central time, but an hour before, I want you to shut down. All the data and science and information says that we actually need to shut our brains down, that our brains are not good in very long, continuous spurts. So make sure you get that good brain energy, that good brain capacity. And what we do and how we get that is we shut down. What does that mean? You go more meditative, you listen to some calming music, maybe you go for a walk outside if that's capable. If you're in a downtown like me, that's not always, it doesn't always relax you. So just calm the mind. That's going to be the most important thing the hour before. Now, in the few hours that you have now, cheat sheet. Remember, your cheat sheet is down below. So when you look down, when you write down your answers, you're actually looking down. And so just make sure that cheat sheet's really clean. Your clarifying questions, your frameworks, and then for your example-based answers, just the titles. Conflict with Bob, process improvement utilizing Salesforce, whatever it might be, just so you can remember your examples if you get example-based questions. So I would really clean up the cheat sheet. If you haven't watched that video, go right to our YouTube channel. Just type in cheat sheet. Even if you type that into YouTube, I think we should be one of the first page hits. And that will kind of educate you and show you how to do that. But if you don't have a cheat sheet, that's the number one piece of advice. Everything else is just fine-tuning your examples, fine-tuning how you ask clarifying questions, and fine-tuning of your frameworks. Good luck. Greetings from London. Sir, good to see you from London. I mean, definitely at the top of my favorite cities in the world. Is there any difference for a recruiter to hire at a higher or lower level? No. There's a couple, this is a great question. Recruiters are not motivated by level and they're not motivated by comp. They're only motivated by one thing: offer accepts. Because typically, now again, these numbers skew based on position, role, but usually it's about 5 to 6 is the average for what they need to hire per quarter. Doesn't sound like a lot. It's a lot. Not very many people make it through the process. That's why you're here to do this live Q&A, because the Google interview process and just the FAANG interview process in general is really, really hard. So they are motivated by hires, which means that's important to know from a leveling perspective that they should be supporting you, and from a comp perspective that they're your advocate. So if I pay Bob $200K and I pay Jane $300K, doesn't matter to me. I just want to get Bob or Jane that best salary that I can get them. I'm their advocate. I'm trying to get them as much money as they want because it doesn't impact me, right? The only thing that impacts me is offer accepts. So great question. Okay, Frank, How's it going? Just heard the results from your on-site PM role. And I might have you come back and confirm. Sometimes PM can be program, sometimes it can be product. Did good on 4 out of 5, but one was 4 was the technical, so maybe this is product. We're doing one technical round for product. Recruiter wants to submit packet to HC and a request to redo the technical interview. Anything you can do to help your case? You were referred and have 5 internal references. I want you to really just take a moment. Sometimes I close my eyes just to like get in that same space with you. Reflect back on what didn't go well on the technical side of things. Like, what were the questions? Why did you struggle? And you're going to have to go in and you're going to have to crush this interview. I mean, this can't even be a lean hire. It has to be a hire or strong hire, right? So what is the step or steps you can take? Are you practicing? Are you practicing with somebody like me or somebody who's a professional in the space? Are you doing everything you can at this point? With 5 internal references and 4 good interviews, you should be putting it all on the line to crush this last interview. So just don't leave anything to the side. You got to do whatever you can to get it done. Okay, we got some people waiting in the beginning. Pretty standard for us, but okay, let's keep going. Next week, you have your final round, 2 virtual on-site interviews for an account manager retail role. They're going to be going with current AM and the partner is being promoted to the squad's AE, okay? It was already approved by the HM and was heavily focused on GCA questions with 2 behavioral ones in the beginning. He seemed to like me. What should I expect for the last 2? I feel like there hasn't been any googliness question yet, but there's also room for some technical RRK. Been studying a lot, but having a focus would definitely help. So I'm going to throw a curveball at you and say that focus, and I actually had a conversation with my client about this yesterday, trying to determine what the questions are and figure that out. It's actually not important. And I always talk to this, and people, I think, get a little frustrated by that, but that's not the important part. The important part is that you're creating that really strong foundation. So that foundation comes with structure. So you understand that you're using STARL, or STARL on the behavioral side, and that you're using CFAS on the open-ended side, and that you are staying rigid within the organizations of those structures. And then you are constantly practicing and prepping on how to bring out the right details and create good visuals in those answers. That's all that matters. So some hiring managers, like you mentioned, will throw more GCA type questions at you. Other hiring managers will only ask behavioral questions. So what does this tell you? Be ready for anything. Super technical questions as an AM, not really likely. They might get more like technical in the ad space, but that's a stretch. It's going to be way more collaborative, client facing, and then you will have more situational items with clients, like they're upset with their ads performance, or they're looking for better utilization, or their click-through rates aren't good, or how do you increase customer satisfaction from 80 to 90%, a very common question. So be ready for more of those types of questions. Okay, any tips on prepping for the on-site for a global product lead in Google Ads? In the SMB space. Okay, especially preparing for the RRK, they prefer a technically strong candidate to work with engineers. Yeah, so these product lead roles are getting pretty interesting. We love, and we always recommend, we have questions in our app, and I can show that right here. You can go into the question bank to get questions, but I do recommend going to Try Exponent. Just all those questions, they're great practice questions for PMs. And here's the thing, you're going in for a global product lead in Google Ads. Don't expect any questions about Google Ads. I'm not saying you won't get them. Absolutely, you might, but you might not. So sometimes they'll have a focus area, but remember, these product roles, even product leads, they're very random. I could be asking you to design a great gas station. I could be asking you how to monetize WhatsApp, things that maybe move really far away from what you think and expect the role is going to ask. So in the product roles, just be very ready for a lot of randomness and a lot of hypothetical open-ended questions. That is just We default to this and see this time and time again. And the best example I can give is I get a ton of product managers for Google Cloud. No Google Cloud questions, literally zero in the interview. And so it just speaks to the randomness of what these interviews look like. So it takes a ton of practice. Lastly, just really quickly for PM interviews, most of my PMs spend way, way too much time ideating and not enough time executing, testing, launching, presenting, and documenting. You need to take me through the execution process and the end stages after you ideate. Otherwise, it's just ideation and you haven't truly solved. Okay. What is the best strategy for answering the question of why Google? So I have a pretty simple formula on the why Google, and we do have a video, so we can stamp that resource in here. And obviously, you can always go to my page and just type in why Google. But it's the rule of three. I really like simplistic when it comes to like, tell me about yourself, why Google, where do you see yourself in 5 years? I really want you to go with a very, very simplistic strategy and just talk about 3 specific items and think 1 minute or less. And usually like something personal, maybe something that's very tied to Google as an overall organization, and then maybe something tied to the role specific piece. That's usually a good path. Jeff, just want to let you know you're doing a great job on this channel. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you. Thank you so much. We appreciate all the positivity and positive comments, and we get people coming in every week that are telling us they got the job, and that's awesome. It definitely pushes us to keep going. We want to continue to push as much free content as we can, even though sometimes it's hard to do it. You should see my Tuesdays. They're pretty tough when I do produce, and so we appreciate you being here. Thank you. Okay, covered that one. If you postpone your interview due to preparedness by, say, a month, would this be seen as a bad candidate attitude? Okay, Michael, this is a good question. And the number one piece is it's okay to push. Remember, interviewers are not going to be upset when they see an interview all of a sudden disappear from their calendar. They'll think, oh, wow, great, I got time back. The biggest and most important item here is to make sure that you ask your recruiter if you're putting anything at risk by pushing the interview out. Meaning maybe they have a very active pipeline and you are potentially putting yourself at risk because you just said, oh, I need a month, but maybe they'll fill the role but by then. So you just really need to ask your recruiter, hey, how thick is the pipeline? How deep is the pipeline, right? Are there a lot of candidates currently interviewing? Am I putting this position at risk by postponing? And just ask that question, and they should be able to answer it. They'll have a good and should have a good pulse on whether there's a pretty active pipeline or not. Raina, oh my goodness. Good to see you. It's been a long time. Raina and I worked at a company called Vistage in San Diego it was another lifetime ago. The image was frozen, but when you hit closed captioning, then the video started working. Okay, that's good to know. Thank you for that information. Sorry, I'm very snotty today. Okay. Let's try this one. If my recruiter is very unresponsive, although you've passed the first stages of the interviews and down to the on-sites, what should I do? Happened for both Google and Amazon. Yeah, this is obviously a really, really common scenario. Just keep pushing. But again, eventually, like we answered that earlier comment, at a certain point, you have to say, hey, you know, like kind of, I've been waiting for a while and I want you to put yourself in my shoes. Now, again, the tone at this stage of the process, you need to be really careful because you don't want to lose the opportunity. Just continue to check in and continue to keep a positive tone. Okay. All right. Any suggestions for someone who's going into their final interview this coming Monday with a product manager who is a cross-functional stakeholder? Role you're interviewing for is a platform strategy lead. I have suggestion to focus on risk management, product launches, and operational efficiencies. Yep, that sounds like a good plan. I mean, I would really, really hone in on thinking about what are the types of clarifying questions, what are the types of frameworks you might use in these specific types of scenarios. That's going to be really, really important. Um, and just remember some level of randomness. Now, strategy leads typically don't get too much randomness, but just um, knowing that this is coming from, you said, a product manager, just expect something kind of random. But definitely, if you've been given these 3 data pieces, make sure you're ready with examples and how to tackle open-ended questions in this space. And remember, that's a really simple trick. All you could say is, you could say something like, what's your strategy for handling risk management? Then answer that question. What are some of the biggest challenges when it comes to product launches? Then work on that question. If you had to name the 3 most important operational efficiencies, what would those be? Or you can tell me about a time where you had to manage risk. Tell me about a really challenging product launch. Tell me about a time where operational efficiencies saved the day. Something like that. So lots of good practice questions from these items. So that's really good data for you. Preparing for an interview with Google in 2 weeks in the US and having a hard time remembering experiences to fill in my statements. I feel like I'm going blank on these stories. Okay, so here's the good news. You have 2 weeks. So with those 2 weeks, really kind of take that time to just sit with the example. So here's an exercise that we've been teaching clients, and we'll share it with you now, is what I want you to do is I want you to title your example. So let's just do something really simple. Let's say Salesforce implementation. I always go back to that because that's something that I did. So with a Salesforce implementation, all you want to ask yourself is, where are the 3 or 4 or 5 areas where I contributed? Simply, that's it. Just title the example and ask the 4 or 5 areas where you contributed the most. Then push it to the side and do it for the next example. Then push it to the side and do it for the next example. Each one should take somewhere from the neighborhood of 1 to 5 minutes. Then you move on to the next one. And what this does is it gets you more action oriented in your mind. And by getting more action oriented in your mind, you tend to recall more details. So get away from trying to like write it all down and just focus in on the actions. And then, and only then, after you've done that for your best examples, come back to them. That's one of the exercises that works. Hey, we're not going to remember everything. Careers get longer and we just don't remember everything, but just do your best. With 2 weeks, you have a lot of time to prep. I think that's a turkey. Thanks, Beth. I think I can see a turkey there. Pretty sure. Is it just the case that recruiters are absolutely bad at replying? I don't think waiting 2 weeks for an answer to scheduling question is unreasonable. No, it's absolutely not unreasonable. So just got to continue to press and good luck. But no, it's not unreasonable. And this is not, yes, it is a case that too many recruiters are not taught the foundational organizational skills to be successful in the role. And that's like, it's one of the only reasons why I think I did a really good job in the role is because I realized early on in my career that if I wasn't super organized, that there was just no way I was going to have success in this position. There's too many moving pieces, too many candidates, too many people in the process, too many hiring managers poking you, and then all this stuff. And without setting a real good organizational skill set, and I should just create a course on this for recruiters because there's just some basic, easy tips. It would really, really help their success. So yes, a lot of recruiters are unorganized. Just continue to push. All right. Brendan Brennan has told us to do the turkey hat. So we're going to do the turkey hat. And we'll leave this on for a little bit until I start sweating in this thing. Let's see. Oh, the colors are, it's so funny. The StreamYard cannot seem to do green. So I feel like this hat isn't actually showing the right colors, but we're going to do the turkey hat for a little bit. We'll keep this on and we'll have some fun with it. As we come in and hit a half an hour, I know we're behind. We're always about 15 to 20 minutes behind on the questions. Hit that like button if you haven't hit it. And obviously, I think I mentioned we're really close to 20,000 subscribers. So if you can hit that sub button, we're trying to maybe hit that today or hit that tomorrow. It'd be amazing. Okay. Found out you passed hiring committee. What's the total comp range you should be shooting for a Google product marketing manager and L6 in LA? Yeah, so PMMs, because it's in the product space, I think we can be driving up this comp a little bit. Like normally I wouldn't say that high, but make sure that you're doing your due diligence by going on levels.fyi, because we do a lot of product manager negotiations, but I don't think I've had a PMM yet. But I mean, just in the product space in general, like a 4-year average of 400K, even in LA, might not be unreasonable just because it's in the product space. Definitely back that up with levels.fyi. Anchor really high. Product is so hot in the market right now. It's Eng and product. And basically, it's not PMM quite as much, but product managers and ML and AI Eng are the two hottest roles worldwide right now. So you're in a good space. Okay. Your Google recruiter told me the team plans to make a decision this week and that I'm in the final running. Yes, Mike. It means that HC has not actually happened yet. That's correct. They should really be telling you this. Sometimes the communication, again, is not as clear as it should be, but they should really be telling you. Okay, let's get some likes. We just asked for that, but can continue to ask. Hi, Jeff. How to answer the question, what's your expected comp and where's your current comp? Yeah, so unless you are at the very end of the process and whatever organization you're talking to wants to make you an offer, you will not talk about comp. You'll deflect, right? And then where are you at in terms of current comp? It really depends. So you may be based outside of the US where they can actually ask that, but in no country are you actually required to give it. You're only really required to give it if you're really trying to drive up the comp. So I would try and stay away from those items as much as possible. And then when they ask for your expected comp, anchor high. We've got a lot of videos on that. So really set that anchor high, whatever you want to earn, 20, 30% more. The only piece of caution I want to give to anybody when anchoring high is understand the organization. You can absolutely pull yourself out of the running if you are asking for 400K for a 200K job at a startup. They might just say, look, we're not aligned. We need to step away. Whereas at some of these bigger companies, the FAANG companies, they're not going to do that. If you guys notice, look, this is this funny thing on StreamYard. Look, I'm getting bricks in my, it looks like there's bricks in this hat. It's ridiculous. Okay, let's keep going. All right. Followed your videos and got through 2 interviews so far. Thank you so much. Absolutely. For the salary expectation question, if it came up again for Strat and Ops L4, L5, what would be a good anchor? Well, you're not there yet. So I don't want you to do this, but location, Chicago and DC, those are 2 very, very different markets. DC pays significantly more than Chicago. It's a much more expensive market. You know, L4, L5 for strategy ops. Yeah, so we got a couple levels, a couple markets. You know, L4, Chicago, 200K 4-year average. You know, for L5 in Chicago, 250 4-year average. Now let's increase each one of those by about 25K for DC, 30K. So I'd be shooting for about 225 to 230 as a 4-year average at L4 and about 275 to 280 as a 4-year average in DC. Now remember, all my 4-year averages are based on a strong negotiation. They will never start at these numbers, never. So the numbers will always come in significantly low because they're comping the market at the 75th percentile, and they do that. But the 75th percentile, it just doesn't match. Google pays so much more than any other company besides other big tech companies. So when you look at the holistic market, they're already paying so much more. So all my numbers are really based on a strong negotiation. Hey, David, good to see you. And we will be staying in touch. Got rejected after your initial technical interview for SWE. When can you reapply? We will put a resource in there. We did a video applying after rejection. So if you want to go check out our YouTube channel, we'll timestamp it. It always takes a couple days to timestamp these things, but we'll throw that in there. But you can go check it out. The number one piece of advice is to stay in touch with that recruiter instead of applying, and then they'll kick you back to apply. But typically, let's say you were just going for like a back end engineer role. You're probably going to want to wait about 9 months, at least 6 to 9 months. They want to see what you can do over usually a 1 year time frame, something like that, maybe a little bit shorter, to see if you've enhanced your skill set. Okay, so when is the right time to schedule a negotiation coaching call with you in the interview process? Is it too late to reach out after the offer letter is given, that we're in the holiday season? We do have clients reaching out at all different stages of the negotiation process. Yeah, we recommend that you're reaching out like right after you get approved by HC. That's usually a really good time, or right before you're really getting into that first comp conversation. That's usually a great time to reach out. Is headcount approved for 2021? Do they need to start on that year or just sign the offer? Yeah, and no worries on the questions. That these questions are good for everybody, and that's what I love doing, because everybody's getting some knowledge here. So yeah, if you sign this year, it would be attributed to headcount of this year. That's correct, even if you're starting next year. Hey Jeff, you got a note from Google because they thought you needed more experience in cloud. You actually have some decent experience in cloud. How long should I wait to reapply? Okay, so similar kind of question. Yeah, similar kind of question. Again, just go back to that video I just mentioned. Typically, cloud is pretty broad, so you could probably be applying for another role today. It just depends on how far away the role is. It has to be pretty different. All right, Raina, good to see you again. It's been a hot minute. Yes. Yeah, great to see you as well. All right, Google TPM interview. What should you focus in on prepping? So we've done a lot of videos on program management, and I strongly encourage you to go check out those videos. TPM is pretty broad. Remember, for a TPM role, they're going to focus in on your program management skills. If there is a specific domain, your domain skills, and then a lot of technical judgment, which doesn't necessarily mean straight technical questions, just how did you use technology and use it efficiently? Those are some of the items I want you to be thinking about. Happy Thanksgiving. Can schedule your virtual on-site interview. Can you ask your interviewer who will interview you? Absolutely. You can always ask. Will they tell you? Maybe, maybe not. I never told my candidates who would be interviewing them. I just protected the confidentiality of my interviewers. That was my choice, right? So they may tell you, they may not tell you, but you should always ask. Your recruiter told you they were waiting final approvals and it's been a bit of a delay. What does that mean? You haven't heard back in 2 weeks. I would check in. It's a funky time of year, of course, but I would definitely check in, and I would check in now. I did a team matching call, and I liked the team. Recruiter said that the hiring manager also got good feelings for the team match, but they would decide after talking to other candidates. Post this, she would talk about next steps. How many days does the hiring manager have to decide post team match? And does getting team matched increase HC approval chances? There are no set amount of days. So any amount of days is possible. It could be a week, it could be a month. Really just depends. It depends on how you're comparing to the other people they're talking to, how many people they're having the opportunity to talk to, if they're able to actually make decisions based on the people they've spoken with. Always having a hiring manager statement of support usually helps. But HC is just its own bear, and you just have to get through it. How long will the background check typically once the offer letter is signed? Should be pretty quick. No more than a week, typically. I have a call for a partner technical manager for Android Automotive. Okay. How does the PTM role compare with the TPM role? What are the pros and cons? Yeah, so my best guess is that, and we actually had a client for this exact role or something very, very similar recently. So it must just show a little bit of a spike in hiring for these positions. Um, you know, I don't know what it would mean in terms of comp, because anything that has like technical in the title usually will pay similarly. My best guess is that you have some sort of experience in the automotive space, and that's why you're getting this interview. That's typically what happens for these types of roles. I think we had a couple clients for these roles, so um, I would say just go for it. Right? If you're getting the interview, I wouldn't worry or fixate too much on that. I would just worry about crushing the interviews for this role. Been 3 weeks from your on-site. Recruiter said she's still waiting to hear back from a recommender. I don't know what that means. Should I be worried? How long do you anticipate, or just keep following up weekly? It's a program management role. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know what that means. You should get some clarity on that from a recommender. What does that mean? So I would continue to check in, and just ask, what does a recommender mean? I don't know what that means. Yeah, PTM, correct. Wanted to join the live and share the good news that you got an L7 offer from Google. Thank you for the great content and advice through the community. Again, thanks a lot. Absolutely. Yeah, congrats. L7 roles are crazy. Those are awesome, awesome roles. So thank you so much for showing up. Tribal knowledge and around Google hiring in the process has been fantastic. We'll ruthlessly follow you. Any inputs, please let me know. Continue to contribute to the community. Yeah, and we appreciate when people continue to show up. We know and we see the trends, right? People come in and they need the information now, and when they're done, and that's okay. The only thing we always ask is, hey, if you like what we do, just share the love, share the knowledge. And the Google specific stuff is great, but the reality is that foundationally, we hope that the coaching and interview information, we know that it works across basically all interviews, and we like focusing in on the Google stuff because we know it's a dream job for a lot of people, but we also know holistically that this content just helps because there's just so much similar or cookie cutter data out there. We just want to be a little bit different. Okay, let's get some likes. For sure, we're about 43 minutes in. As always, I'm always sitting at about 20 minutes behind. So I appreciate everybody's patience. We will get to all the questions. It just takes some time, and we'll start catching up usually in the next 15 to 30 minutes. We'll start catching up. Interviewing for the ABP in Zurich, was expecting it to be an L4, but it's an L3. How much should I expect in L3, and can I negotiate for L4? You have 10 years of experience. 8. Okay. Yeah, that's surprising that they came in as an L3. Again, Zurich pays similar to like the premium markets in the US. So, and I always forget like the currency and if Zurich is on the euro or not. I don't think you are, but I can't remember. So, for US dollars, we want to look and be targeting, mid to high ones as a 4-year average. You'll get paid well, and just know that jump from 3 to 4 can be incredibly fast. Like you could absolutely jump up a level in 1 year. So it's still worth it, even though they've kind of brought you in at a lower level. Oh, and no, you cannot negotiate L4. You would have to have support from the recruiter and hiring manager to do that. You cannot negotiate that on your own. Hey, Tina, good to see you. Thank you again. 4 months into Google. You love your job. Thank you so much for all the tips. This job is everything I hope for and more. Okay, so Betsy, that's a reason. Look at Tina's comment, and obviously it's a good reason to accept the job, even at L3. I think I mentioned when I did the Google levels video that I got hired as an L4. I was 35. I got hired as an L4 at 35. And so, in terms of overall years of experience, I definitely was more of a 5. But my recruiting experience was not quite as strong. I was probably right on the cusp, and I got hired as a 4. And it took a couple of years to get promoted. But obviously that journey was worthwhile. So sometimes I just don't want you to get too fixated on level. You have an offer from Amazon for an L6 senior program manager with a response deadline next week. For my recruiter via email, and finally got his response saying they will push to see. Okay. See if they can update him if I accept Amazon. Okay, so you have an offer from Amazon for an L6, but you're waiting on Google feedback. Yeah, you're gonna have to really push that process. I want you to hold off on telling them whether you accept as long as you can. But an L6 offer from Amazon is going to be a good offer. Oh, okay. And so you cleared the RRK. Oh, I thought we were farther along. GCA. So how do you best prepare? So yeah, we have a lot of good ABB questions. You're just going to get something funky about like scheduling or some sort of mix up on the calendar or some sort of tricky travel. It's going to be something probably with the scheduling, and then maybe something else with prioritization or working across teams. Typically GCA interviews in 2021, 2 open-ended and 1 behavioral, but anything's possible. People have come in and had just behavioral GCA interviews. Is that common? No, that's less than 1%. But just be prepared for anything. And remember, always, always, always in GCA interviews, answer wearing the hat of the role. That is the most critical piece. I had a meeting with the big boss. I like that for TSC. It went well. Should I follow up or wait for them to get back? This was your 4th round coffee chat. Seemed like a full-fledged interview. Yeah, if it was a coffee chat, it was probably not a scored interview, but still critical. So should you follow up with them? Yeah, if it's been a week, follow up, right? I would definitely just keep the same kind of cadence, but it sounds like pretty positive. In the team matching phase with Google's ERCs, we L4. Talked to 2 HM so far. Both chose other candidates and not me. How bad is that? Can I ask my recruiter to find another team? Yeah, ask your recruiter to keep going. It's not a bad thing, but I just want you to reflect back in what went well during those conversations and what didn't go well. Did you ask enough questions? Were you excited, engaged, enthusiastic? Like, you really need to bring good enthusiasm there. Even if they're not really high energy, they want to hire somebody who's smiling and enthusiastic, not over the top, but I want you to really, really bring good energy into those team match calls. I feel like that's not happening all the time. Hey, thank you for the content. You got positive feedback from your final interview and you're negotiating the location and comp. Okay. What are your thoughts on business analytics role at Google versus Facebook, now Meta? So I really feel like both companies are great. Obviously there's just something that the Google brand holistically and globally is just a little bit stronger. That's it. It's just a little bit stronger brand. It carries a little bit more value. Oftentimes Facebook actually will pay a little bit more than Google. Like their initial comp offers can be really strong. They're both good companies though. And I would encourage working at either one. What you're really looking for is if you can have good conversations with the hiring manager, because the manager relationship is going to be more important than even the organization. So if you, for instance, liked the manager that you spoke with more at Facebook, you should strongly consider that item. It's very, very critical. Oh, let's see if I have a. Oh, okay. So this was the last part. There was an offer from Amazon. deactivate your Google package from further consideration. You prefer Google, but your recruiter hasn't taken you seriously and hasn't been pushing the team. Yeah, that's very common. They just don't understand prioritization and pushing things through for candidates. And I see this all the time. Like, I don't really understand, because I used to, if somebody had a competing, I was able to really move mountains. And I think that's still possible if recruiters show a high sense of urgency. I just don't think that this recruiter is probably pushy enough. I would really push for my clients. So, yeah, just hold off as long as you can about talking about accepting Amazon, and just continue to push, push, push. Keep us updated. Is there any problem in applying to a new role when you're already in the final roles interviews for another one? Google and both are AMs for different teams. I mean, at the end of the process, yeah, I really don't like that. As your recruiter, to me, that's just really tricky. It's just saying that you're not really interested in these roles. And sometimes at that point, as your recruiter, I feel like you're wasting my time. If it's early in the process, yes. If we're really early in the interview process and we find another role that we like, we ask if we can be dual tracked. So it's really important that at this point, I think you just stick with what you got. Happy Thanksgiving, and thanks for all you're doing. Your tips and interviews helped a lot. Hiring manager and cross-functional interview pending for Pops. Okay, a DEI facing role. Awesome. Good luck. Let us know if you have any questions. Oh my goodness, it's okay. While negotiating an offer at FAANG, is it better to wait for a written doc after background check, or should you let your recruiter know? Yeah, so typically they're not going to give you a document until you verbally agreed. Yeah, if the initial estimate is about 20 to 30% off your desired, I would anchor at like 50% higher, because you got to go really, really high in these. But yeah, they usually won't trigger an offer letter until you verbally accept it. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have any other questions. Last one, you also have a call with a PGG and chief of staffing for the function AVP. This is for me to ask any questions I might have about the role. What are some good questions to ask? Yeah, you want to ask them, what are some of the things they love about the role, the company, the projects they're working on, and then where are some areas where you can contribute? Where are they really seeing gaps where they might need help? Just ask a ton of positive questions. That's most important. Don't really challenge them too much, but you got to come and ask really good and interesting questions. You're now at the final round for Google, and you have an informal chat with the director. Is this normal? How informal is it? Is there anything specific to prepare? Yeah, so yes, it's informal in the sense that it's not scored, but it's not informal. It's not informal in the sense of the way I want you to prep. So it is normal to have these kind of just informal conversations. They just happen, right? And sometimes that's just the team and the way they like to do it. Just take it very seriously, and remember, at the director level, what's most important at the director level is less is more. Be short, be concise. All right, yeah, let's get some opinions on this turkey hat and whether I should continue to rock this or take this off. I think it would be foolish to take it off at this point, but I'm open to comments. Thanks for your content. Please advise on how to answer the question. Your teammate asked for a promotion, but he worked just a couple of months. What would you do? Position vertical lead in G Tech. Yeah, so when anybody comes and asks for a promotion after a short period of time, it's really trying to understand, again, foundation. We need to find out a little bit of data for them. It's your teammate. So is this teammate, is this truly your direct report? We want to establish that. We want to establish if they came in, do we believe that they came in at a lower level than they should have been hired at? Have we in the past set any plan to start talking through promotion with them, yes or no? Then we'll set a really collaborative framework, listening, questioning, empathy, psychological safety, and the number one item, an action plan. If I'm a lead and somebody comes to me and they say, hey, I want to be promoted, I would sit with them and I would say, okay, I'm really happy that you shared this with me. We need to create an action plan, because without an action plan and without you achieving the targets and goals of the next level, I can't promote you. That's what would be needed for me to get approval to promote you. So let's go ahead and set the plan. Now, you might get pushback, like a follow-up question. What if they don't agree with it? Well, if they don't agree with it, we need to, again, go back and listen and question and understand why, understand if this is the right role, right company for them. But again, doing it from a real psychological safety point of view. Subbed. Awesome. Thank you for that. And if you are liking what we're doing, if you're liking what we are doing, hit that like button, please. Okay. Thank you so much. Your free content and help you land an offer with Meta. Awesome. It's helping you move through the Google panel interviews. 2 more. Negotiation vids next. You're a life changer. Awesome. Awesome. Good luck. Waiting for your internal interview results. However, my referrer got a badge saying, okay, saying someone they referred got an offer and others they referred haven't finished their interviews. However, I haven't received anything from the recruiter. What does that mean? Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, yeah, I think that they get notified when it actually hits the offer stage. But usually there's not anything else. Again, you just got to stay in touch. Sorry, I know that that's not a great answer. I know that that's not a great answer. Yeah, so we're going to sidebar here for just a second. Again, I know we're behind on the questions, so I'll do this quickly. I went to a YouTube conference in LA and I talked to the people at StreamYard, and they asked me to go incognito so that it doesn't show up as like orange on like the plant back there. You can see it showing up as orange and these bricks show up. But I think it's just a challenge with the program, because I think on this hat even that there's other colors in here, like there's greens, and it's just showing up weird, but we'll just roll with it. I got a brick in my hat and that's pretty cool. Jeff from India, thanks for the support. Thanks for staying up late to be with us. We appreciate it. How much data recruiters store after rejection? Everything is in the system. All that data is captured and stored. Just remember, because the system technically could be audited by a third party legally, they're not writing negative reviews in there like you did X or you did Y. They can leave positive comments, but not negative ones. Cleared your on-site interviews, and during your interviews, you asked interviewer to give me feedback, and everyone said that I did well, and we're also happy with your performance. Okay, that's awesome that you actually did that. He had a word with my recruiter, and he said the feedback is positive, but he told he will be connecting with the hiring manager, and after her feedback, will be reaching out to HC. Well, HC also approved. We don't know. Yeah, it's an unknown. If all the interviewers were giving you good, positive feedback and indications that you were doing well, that's great news, but we don't really know what that feedback says. So we can never guarantee how you'll do in HC. It's just I don't want to guarantee anything. It's just a step of the process you're going to need to make it through. Just keep us updated. When you apply to a non-technical PGM role at Google, do you see Google touching on any high-level technical questions in the interview, or will most questions be more program sense focused? Well, yeah, it's a little less technical, but a lot of program managers grew up on the technical side of things. So there still could be some domain technical, but yeah, it's not going to be super, super in the weeds technical. I think there's a misconception that the technical program managers have very technical questions. A lot of times it's more domain technical specific. I have a call with a recruiter to go over a level I'm interviewing for, plus comp details and structures. Do you have any guidance for the comp call and how to handle it? Yeah, anchor high. Anchor really high. Okay, Google Senior Technical Program Manager interview. You're going to have technical judgment interviews, you know, more RRK focused, Google Leaders in Leadership, GCA. So what should you be prepping for and focusing for a TPM? All those items. Just remember, we have a lot of videos on program management. Now, remember, most TPM roles are domain specific, so make sure you're prepping on the domain stuff as well. And then when they ask for your comp expectations, do you say total comp or salary? You say nothing until you've passed hiring committee. Nothing. Just deflect. I'm not ready yet. I still need to do my research. I'm not prepared. I don't know what level I'm going to be. So don't talk about comp until they already want to hire you. And then I would need to know senior TPM. Let me know what level. Awesome content. Really appreciate it. What is an average L5 and L6 comp for a TPM? Will the top comp get affected if the offer moves to next year? Comp will not be affected if it moves to next year. If I'm an L5 trying to get a TPM role in the Bay, I want a 300 plus 4-year average on comp, which means the first year should come in around 350. And then at L6, I'm pushing up to a 4-year average of the mid threes into the mid to middle upper, like 360, 370 as a 4-year average. That's really kind of pushing the envelope, but with a good negotiation, you can get there. And so, Ariel, I hope that answer also helps with what you were looking at, because L5, L6 would be more senior TPM. So I hope that helps as well. Thanks for your interview help. I used a lot of techniques and you're starting your role next Monday. Amazing. We love to get that news. Thank you so much for showing up and letting us know. Congrats. It's awesome. Just joined to say thank you for your amazing content. Recently made it into Google because of the videos. Awesome. We love these back-to-backs. That's so awesome. Again, we know all the hard work that you put in on, for both of you, that you put in on your end to get there. And we were just a small part of the process, but thank you for watching and thank you for showing up and letting us know. Hey, okay. You received your initial comp numbers from the recruiter, which is much lower than expected. The figure is share. Recruiter said, unless I share competing offers, it wouldn't be possible to go back to the comp team. Yeah, I would just push back on that. I would say, look, I cannot accept this offer. These numbers are way below expectations. Are you telling me that this is the best possible offer you can give? So just push back. Recruiters play games all the time. There's not a single offer in my entire time of working with all these negotiation clients that we have not been able to push the offer, even without competing. So just strongly push back. That's my recommendation. And strongly push back with good positivity and graciousness and kindness. Regarding your earlier question, if the team is still choosing a candidate, does that mean they are deciding on who to submit to HC? Yeah, that is exactly what it is. So recruiters being rude and won't work with me in offer negotiation Facebook. Can I work with a different recruiter? Thanks so much for helping me land an offer plus Google interviews, life changer. Awesome. I think at this point, you cannot change recruiters. That does not happen. So at this point, you just need to say, how can we work together better? Because right now, the current offer in its current state, I can't accept. I'm very, very close to landing an offer with Google. I'm getting positive feedback and I'm feeling like that's potential, but I'm very interested in Facebook Meta. That's why I'm here. So I just want to figure out how we can work together better, because right now in its current state, I'm probably not going to be able to accept this offer, but I want to work together and make sure that I'm maximizing this offer. So it's something that I could really consider. That may not work, but those are my recommendations. I hope that helps. Though you have a higher competing offer from Amazon L6, I don't feel it's the right thing to do. Would you recommend any other data point? No, you got to share that data point. You will be doing yourself a huge disservice. You don't think it's the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do. These companies, I think we need to just have a pause moment here, and I need to get strong on my feedback for your benefit. These companies will not protect you if anything changes in the economy. If you get a bad manager who just wants to make your life miserable, You have to do what's best for you. And it is totally fine to share offers. They have given you that offer. That is your offer. You need to share it. This is not the time to say, oh, I don't want to share that offer. This is how the world works in FAANG. So I strongly want to push back on that and say, share that offer. The only person you're doing a disservice to if you don't share that offer is you. So share the offer, push up your numbers, get the comp you deserve. This is where you need to focus on you. I hope that helps. Your recruiter is waiting to hear back from an interviewer to provide their recommendation. It was a Google Onsite. No, 3 weeks is a really long time, so just make sure you continue to stay in touch. All right, Betsy, for your upcoming interviews, keep in mind that scheduling conflicts don't always mean one-on-one. Think volume. Amazing, Tina. Thank you so much for giving that input for Betsy. It's amazing. If one rejects the offer due to low leveling, do they come back again within a year to see if the person is ripe enough for the next level? I like that word terminology. 8+ years of experience with PMP and other agile certifications. What should one aim for? Yeah, you're aiming for L5, but if you get L4, don't worry about it. If they do come back in a year, yeah, there's always an opportunity, a year of knowledge, and you would say, hey, like I want to come in at the next level, or else I'm not that interested in interviewing. Does reneging on a company mean you will never work for them again? Accepted an amazing Disney offer, but in the middle of Google recruitment, thoughts, and is reneging as bad as people say? You're a new grad. Yeah, you'll never work for that company. You'll never work for Disney. I'd be shocked if they'd ever hire you. I mean, I wouldn't, if I saw that in the notes, I would never take that risk with you, because if you've done it once, I would believe that you would do it again. So yeah, you won't have the opportunity to work at Disney, but if you're giving it up for something that you believe is better, again, getting back to what we were just talking about, you have to do what's best for you. These companies will not look out for you if things go wrong with the economy or anything else. So you have to look out for yourself. It's just a really, really important point. But yeah, you will never be able to work for them. Typically, that's the case. For undergrad, new career position, new grad position in the US, does headcount decrease as we go towards December? 100%. Headcount is getting super, super thin right now. After you're on site for a Google Quantum AI interview, you did not get feedback for 3 weeks. The recruiter then called to say you came in a close second and highly encouraged you to try again in the future. Sorry, everybody, I'm stumbling on my words today. Maintain connection with the team. The recruiter is very, very not responsive. Okay. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, but if you came in second for a quantum AI role, use them as your point of contact. Even if they're not super responsive, trust me when I tell you, they are going to see you as an easier future hire. So if they're not super responsive, check in once a month, check in once a quarter, but continue to check in, because having that POC, even if they're very not responsive, is better than just trying to apply online. Clearly, you have some sort of awesome skill set. I mean, in AI and ML, you can kind of pick your path as long as you're a good interviewer. So yeah, I feel like you're in a good place, but continue to stay in touch with them even though they're not responsive. You completed your on-site interviews last week. You reached out to the recruiter for interview feedback, and he said he's waiting on additional feedback from the interviewers. What does that mean? Probably that the additional word was not a good word. He's probably just waiting on feedback from a couple interviewers, but continue to check in. Do FAANG companies always do a background check? Is it relevant for the US or Europe too? Oh, that's a good question. I would imagine that they do it everywhere. I actually don't know the answer to that question, but I would imagine that they do background checks in every single market, would be my assumption. Had last Google round on the 21st of October. Finally heard from your recruiter yesterday. Interviewer did not submit feedback and is on leave till mid-Feb. Both interviewer and their manager are unresponsive. Recruiter suggests having an additional round of interview. I see the luck factor involved. Should I wait for the original interviewer feedback? Wow. This is a tough scenario. The only other thing I would say is both interviewer and their manager are unresponsive. what I would have asked the recruiter before you do that additional interview, which you may want to do, because you don't want to give up this role. Somebody else could come in and have a different interviewer and get hired. So I feel like you probably should take another interview. Yeah, you're bringing in risk, but you're also bringing in risk if you just wait around. That role might not be there. You need to ask your recruiter that question. You also need to ask your recruiter if they escalated up above the manager. This is something that I 100% did. I mentioned this in the live last week. I had a terrible interviewer who would never submit feedback. I messaged his manager yelled at me, and then I escalated to the VP on that manager. And I went all the way up to the VP and I said, this is ridiculous. I am getting criticized for asking for interview feedback. I'm not hearing back from the interviewer, and the manager has a negative tone with me. And the VP ruined that person because it was totally unacceptable. I shouldn't be yelled at for doing my job, right? And so, sorry, it's a tangent, but if you go back to the recruiter, just ask, hey, did we talk to the manager's manager? Because that is the appropriate step. And if they didn't do that, they're not doing their job. You should take that other interview. That's my recommendation. But just ask, am I putting the job at risk? Remember, that interviewer is trying to come in and give feedback 3 or 4 months later. Maybe they come in and they're in a bad mood and they give you negative feedback. We just don't know. So either way, there's some risk involved, but I would just take another interview and try and push the process. Good luck. Let us know. Okay. You finished your interviews 2 weeks ago. Team was already decided, but no feedback yet. Recruiter said to come back this week after a long silence, but nothing yet. Another offer in the final stages. Yeah, just really, really highlight and escalate what's going on there. Just continue to push and say, like, I really got this other offer. The week of Thanksgiving is obviously super tough, but just put some urgency behind it, be gracious and kind. And sometimes the timing doesn't work out. Sometimes we have to accept the other offer and then go back and actually accept it and then say, hey, I can't start because I got this great other offer, which again, you'll burn a bridge, but sometimes it needs to be done. Sorry that this is happening. Timing is always really tricky. Thanks for everything. Hands down the best content out there. Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much. We're trying. So we know we have a really faithful audience and we love that. Thanks, Jeff. You've learned a lot from your content. Awesome. Thank you so much for showing up. Hi. Good to have you here. Okay. Can you describe the compensation escalation process and success rate? So yeah, occasionally compensation needs to be escalated because it's a critical hire, because like things just aren't working and aligning. That's not going to be done by you. That will be done internally if they really decide it's needed. Usually the hiring manager will be involved, but the escalation will go to higher levels of leadership. So let's say the manager reports to a director, we go up to maybe the director, the VP, and it would all be discussed for why to push you outside of the band, which would usually be a pretty heavy equity grant. What's the business logic or business reasoning? So I definitely got in that scenario a handful of times, not very often, but occasionally I needed to bring in and we would need to escalate. There were certain times that were different, like in 2016 when Facebook just decided they wanted to pay people 20 to 30% more than every other company. That created a lot of escalations, of course, and a lot of losses on my end. But yeah, there is an escalation process, but it's usually being driven by your very unique skill set, your very strong competing offers. You're usually not pushing that. You're pushing that by standing firm, but internally somebody's got to make a move to get that done. I hope that helps. How do you think we should go about data analyst role for trust and safety, GCA and ROK? Okay, so we have a lot of data on these roles. Go into our question bank. We're going to have a bunch of questions here for both GCA, which is going to be just focus on those questions that are more open-ended, and then RRK, more maybe open-ended role-specific and behavioral questions. So definitely go there. That's going to be helpful. And then remember, it's an analytical role. So what does that mean? You're going to have to get into the weeds of the data, but analysts do a lot of collaborative work. So don't forget about collaborating with critical stakeholders. It's just going to be absolutely critical for your success in these answers. Thanks so much for these videos. Helped your husband land a job at Google and given you so much more confidence. Absolutely. Good luck with everything. What is a reasonable amount of hours to prepare to Google interview between watching your videos and other tasks? There is no set amount of time. It's a different amount of time for everybody. All I'll tell you is it's not nearly the amount of time that you'll get the ROI. The ROI on prepping for interviews, there's really not a lot of things in life that will give you a higher ROI than prepping and practicing for your interviews. It's through the roof because this one job can change our lives. And I'm here to tell you, welcome to my world. I mean, when I got the job at Google, I instantly more than doubled my income and I was able to have a pretty good career there. And now, at almost 4 years after leaving, I got to travel the world. I got to live in Maui. I got to do amazing, amazing things. And I sat in my bed all weekend before my Google interviews and just didn't leave the house. And I just prepped and prepped and prepped and prepped. And at that time, I just had 3 half-an-hour interviews for a contractor role. But I did what other people weren't willing to do. So how far away do you feel like you're on your prep? The only gauge of that is to get all that information down and then practice. That will really tell you where you are. So I would just say as much time as you can spend, do it. HC is done before the team match or after. If the recruiter said you are good for L4 and not hire, does that signify that I've passed HC? Oh yeah, that's super frustrating that they haven't told you. Sometimes HC happens before, sometimes it happens after. I had somebody get really upset with me on YouTube saying that I was incorrect. I cannot establish for any given role whether it comes before or after. I can't establish whether you've been to HC, and we just got to be following up with our recruiters and saying, does that mean I passed HC? Because they should be telling you that information. But I am not the end all be all. And again, this has nothing to do with your comment. Of course, I want you to go ahead and ask, but our point of contact is our best source for information. I'm a secondary resource. Now, of course, when you're going and you're prepping and you're getting ready, you're not going to have that POC, right? But once you have that POC, that's the person you lean on. I know sometimes they're unresponsive, but we just need to be, when we get in contact with them, we just need to be asking all the pertinent, clarifying questions if anything's unclear. Glad to see you here. Are there high and low recruiting seasons, for example, during Christmas and New Year's? When will Google hire more? Yes and no. The last couple, this is like, they're still going strong. And so are we, and our clients are still coming in like crazy, and we'll see this all up until like mid-December. Then it will slow down a little bit. I do think that typically Q2, Q3, and Q4 are bigger hiring periods for a company like Google. Q1 tends to be a little bit slower. There's so much planning and headcount planning. It's so painfully slow that a lot of the headcount isn't outlined in Q1, and that's Q1 tends to actually be the slowest quarter from what I've seen. Any insights into a strategy and ops associate interview? This is for a cyber-related position. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Recruiter told me 3 45-minute rounds, first HM, then stakeholder you'd work with frequently, then a cross-functional team member. Yeah, I would just say really go in here and go into our question bank and look at the strategy and ops questions. Here's the thing. With associate roles, they tend to lean more behavioral. They tend to not push and pressure you as much on the open-ended hypothetical side. I still want you to be ready for anything, but our associate roles, classically, we've seen more behavioral questions. And those questions can be examples from school as well. Absolutely. We appreciate you being here. I hope the hat's rocking it strong. I didn't know if I would do it today, but it seems to be working out perfect. You have your final call coming up with Google. Your question is, should I expect more or less of the same format? Hypothetical questions. Yeah, so expect anything. Yeah, so here's what I want to just kind of pose. I did mostly GCA questions. Obviously, GCA interviews lean open-ended. I also did RRK interviews, and there's this sense, in RRK that it leans more behavioral. I would ask only open-ended questions. I have that choice as an interviewer. So your interviewer has a choice to ask, behavioral, open-ended, or both. Remember, it just depends on their personality type, so we can never guess. Just be ready for anything. Shall one wait for an L5 to re-entry within 1 year or more instead of joining an L4? No, I would join as an L4 because then in 1 year you could be at an L5. So that I would definitely recommend just joining, getting your feet wet, and diving right in, as long as the comp matches your expectations. Just had your third and final interview for PGM position at Google. Curious to know how long it will take to find out. Don't know. It's an unknown, but if you haven't heard back in a week, just make sure you're following up with your recruiter. It's a slow process. Interviewed for an L4 ML suite. After 5 weeks, no team match. Recruiter wants to move to HC. Says sometimes that makes it easier to find a team. Is this a good idea? Yeah, we're going to trust in our recruiter. Great question. Trust in your recruiter that the feedback is strong enough to pass HC, because then the recruiter can go, hey, look, I got this great candidate. They're HC approved. Hiring managers are more likely to talk to you because you've passed a tough part of the process. So I absolutely would recommend going with that. It doesn't mean 100% that you'll pass HC, but we got to lean on our recruiters and trust our recruiters at this point. Okay, so please share tips for googliness and leadership for DEI focused people ops. Yeah, so you are going to have a heavy lean towards inclusivity. And you have to be thinking about inclusivity in all facets, right? So just be ready for any inclusivity question. And then, of course, you're going to have the classic questions: unethical, conflict, somebody's being left out, etc. But they're not going to sway too much, but just a lean on inclusivity for sure. Since Google hires for more generalist roles and not specific to a team, can I ask for a change in location from UK to US or India, even since pay is way less in UK and US and cost of living is high? Well, Google does both. They hire for generalist and specific roles. It's not really, they don't lean one way or the other. Is there an option for you to work remote? These are all questions that you'll just need to ask. Some positions are open to it, some are not. But yeah, if I was going to pick, let's say, for instance, between the UK and the US, while the UK is amazing and a great place to live, you're going to make way more. If you work in London, which is as expensive, if not more expensive, because of the conversion of pounds to US dollars than New York or the Bay, you're going to get paid like half or less in London. I mean, it's just such a big differential. But obviously, there's like the amazing part of living in London and one of the best cities in the world. So those are just factors you need to weigh. But when I weigh just straight comp, I'm almost always going to pick the US over EMEA. The only market that comes close in EMEA is Zurich. Context in your question: account strategist role for customer solutions team. Okay, we might be really buried here. Oh, did I miss this? Final upcoming call. Oh, okay. So account strategist role. Okay, so for the account strategist role, they should be telling you. You're only having a few interviews: GNL, GCA, and RRK. Yeah, they should tell you what interview that is. Definitely will come back when it finally happens. Thanks for the good vibes and awesome context. Happy Thanksgiving. Thank you so much. Okay, so thank you. Your recruiter mentioned your expectations are at the high end and compensation has been escalated. Recruiter has been very helpful. What are the chances of an escalation approval? Wondering the terminology there on escalation. Like, was it truly escalated? Again, this is articulating what they're saying. Escalated could mean they just went back to the comp team. Yeah, it's an unknown data point, but we don't know, but keep pushing back. Whatever you're doing the right thing. So keep doing whatever you're doing. It's working. What are the chances of getting a higher recommendation from HC for software roles as a refresher? Can't tell you. There are no predictions, unfortunately, that I can give in terms of what the chances are of making it all the way through the process. It's a complete unknown. But I can tell you overall the percentages are low, but you should still try. The percentages are low to do a lot of things in life, but we just got to try. Thanks for your content. We got a coaching with John last week. Awesome. John Jackson is one of our coaches. He's amazing. He's worked at Google. I hired him at Google, convinced him to move from Texas to California. I think he's moved back to Texas now, but he's worked at Google, Facebook, and Apple. He's an awesome coach. And you're at the team matching stage for a TPM and PGM path. You did well in the on-site interviews. And I had 4 quick turnaround fit calls last month and didn't get the roles. What do you suggest I do? Yeah, this is tough. There's something going on in the fit calls. If you are 0 for 4, you need to really think about and reflect back on what was happening in those calls. Were you asking great questions? Were you excited, enthusiastic, engaged? Did you have great energy, great voice? These are things I want you to think about. I want you to potentially practice a team match call with a significant other, friend, colleague, family member, whoever. See and ask them how they're responding to you, how they feel about you, because a lot of times it can be energy related. Yep, just drop your question in the chat. We're actually catching up. We always catch up. It's almost always right around 11:30 Pacific. We start to actually catch up on this. It takes a while, but we always get there. Thanks for answering your previous question on strategy and ops role for cyber. Do you think there'll be a heavy focus on technical cyber? Maybe. Just remember, if you get it like a straight technical question, like how does X work? Just make sure to clarify that, because they might have this path for X and you have this path for X. So just make sure you definitely clarify any technical questions, but it's definitely possible. I don't think it's going to be too crazy on that side, but definitely clarify any straight technical questions. Okay, yeah, we're almost an hour and a half in. So if you haven't liked this video and you like what we're doing, please smash that like button. And obviously, we're getting really close to 20K subs. We will definitely be there by the end of the week. If we could get there today or on Thanksgiving, that would just be extra special. It's a really hard number to achieve, even though I know we see channels with millions of subscribers. It took over 3 years to get to 20K, and this year has obviously been an awesome year. So if you like what we're doing overall, please subscribe. Does joining this time of year mean any different than joining next year? Will they drop me if the process is not closed this year, have different headcount approval? You just want to check in with your recruiter. I mean, I always recommend, start sooner rather than later. And if you can start in December, like especially if you can start December 13th, you're going to go through orientation and then you're going to come into a couple of weeks with days off. It's going to be super slow. If you can make it work in December, make it work. Absolutely. Recruiter mentioned that HC suggested one more round. Now recruiter says there may not be another round. Is it possible that they've rejected me or changed their mind? Yeah, so you're going to want to ask those questions. I really don't know what's going on, unfortunately. So just go in and check and really push for some more feedback, because I'm not sure what's happening. Your current total comp is 180 to 190K. Recruiter mentioned mid to high 100s for strategy and ops associate. Can you use your total comp to negotiate into the low mid 200s? Not sure what level that falls under. Yeah, I mean, the associate level roles are usually the associate level roles are like L3s. So yeah, we would really want to see. But yeah, you're going to want to push back. They do not take total comp into consideration anymore. Your current comp is not, in the US, is not considered. They don't look at it anymore. So you just need to negotiate and push back as much as you can and set that high anchor. General idea of how many rounds does a negotiation last for a generic L4 role? Any related resources? Video idea? Yeah, absolutely. It depends. And we have multiple videos on negotiation. So if you go to our YouTube channel, you'll find them. We can also throw them in the resources of this video when we timestamp it, but we have a lot of videos on negotiation. The number one thing is set the anchor high. Number two is, yeah, gracious and kind. And then the biggest item here is It depends. Sometimes you'll set the anchor high, they'll come back and they'll say, hey, we were able to do everything we can the first time around, best and final, and it doesn't move. Sometimes I've had negotiation clients get more money 4 or 5 times. It just depends. Remember, each iteration, when you ask for more, start to get more reasonable. Little bumps are much more likely than big bumps after they come and they've given you more money. Yeah, Pramp is a free peer-to-peer interview service. I don't know where that's coming from, but that Pramp would be for anything that's a SWE or so any sort of coding or system design. Obviously, there's like a million good resources out there for doing that. That's peer-to-peer. If you do go in to our Slack channel, you can sign up for our Slack group, and we have free peer-to-peer in there. You just have to throw in what you're looking to interview for, and people are really willing to help. The Slack community is very community driven. I'm totally hands off. I'm not in the community. I let the community drive itself, and it's been really, really positive. Your application is an internal review. It's been 15 days and you haven't heard back from the recruiter. Last time they said there's a backlog in IR, so my application was in line. What can I do to speed it up? Just stay in touch with them. There's really nothing you can do on your end. So just stay in touch and keep checking it. The recruiter said that if a person is not hired by December 31st, it will miss the next compensation adjustment, which is in September. So you have to wait 21 months for a compensation adjustment. Is it true? I'm thinking to just ask for more. Ask for more when? Yeah, I mean, they have pretty strict processes there, right? So it's not one of those situations where you can determine if they're telling you that you can't get a comp adjustment in September, then that's the case. They're big companies, so they have to be pretty rigid. Never discussed leveling. Never discussed leveling with the recruiter before finishing the interviews. What level should you target with 11 plus years of experience, RSO, PGM, non-tech role? I mean, you should be an L5. But yeah, you're not going to be able to set that. So yeah, you're not going to be able to set that. So that will be determined for you. Hopefully it's L5. It should be. Yeah, this is where we want you to go. When you go into the Slack group, there's a peer practice interviews, and people are practicing with each other. It's amazing to see. Google recruiter says she wants to target me for a role in Q1 of 2022 at TAM. Yep. Prepping on GCP products. Do recruiters follow through generally on statements like above? Sometimes they don't. Just stay in touch with them. You need to take control of that situation, but it sounds good. Up your GCP knowledge. Other TAMs are. So it's a great time at the end of this year to really up that TAM knowledge. Go to GCP testimonials. Check out some of those testimonials. That will give you a good pulse for the TAM role. You passed your interview role for the customer engineer specialized in security, L6. Had positive feedback for GCA googliness and leadership. And I passed the RK last Friday. When do you think I can get feedback? I don't know, but just stay in touch with them. If you haven't heard back, just check in, kind of next Monday around noon. Just people are getting back from the holidays. If this is in the US, if it's not in the US, I would say check in midday on Friday. Wanted to know if it's common or even possible for HC to cancel their request for an additional round. It's possible. I don't really and haven't really seen that. So you'd really have to ask your recruiter why they would do that. I haven't really seen that happen. Do companies increase their comp bands in the new year? If I don't get hired by end of year, could I assume there will be more room for negotiating? Maybe, maybe not. We don't really know. But yeah, they're really looking at it on a yearly basis. Whether they do it in the beginning of the year, middle of the year, I can't say where they're at right now. I don't think it would be like very beginning of the year, but it could be. I don't know. Thank you so much. Sure. So follow up, I'm thinking of asking for a higher compensation. I don't think that should be your driver. I think you should just be asking for a higher comp just overall, because you just want to be driving that comp up as much as possible. I don't think that the time should really impact it, even though you wouldn't get a merit. Just ask for more always. days. Yeah, of course. If the recruiter sourced me to interview versus applying, does that carry more weight in the HC round? Absolutely not. HC does not look at that stuff. They're not aware of it. It's not important. Okay, everybody. We are hitting a time. We ran out of questions, and it's good. And we might have a question pop in. If we do, I'll answer it. But thank you so much for being here. If you're in the U.S., enjoy your day tomorrow. Take the time to relax, give back, be grateful. And we really, really appreciate everybody being here. Again, we're going to roll 3 more of these for the rest of this year. So in the 3 more, we'll hit that 50 number for total lives. And it's just an awesome, awesome number for us. We're going to answer this last question. HC round, your HR sent you the mail to give you details related to current salary and a few internal references. Give them internal references and then leave it blank, okay, on the comp thing. Don't put anything. As we walk away, like this video if you like it. And Zoe, great to see you here. Yeah, so happy to see you here. I hope everything's going great. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great Thanksgiving, and we appreciate you, and have a great day.